Today I want to keep working or talking about the thought experiment that I've done the last week. Pretty much we are on thinking about what if we could see more light. Yesterday I looked a little bit more on what if we could see infrared light and started a little bit with the X-rays and gamma rays, and I want to continue with this today. So if we could see X-rays and gamma rays and they would actually be present around us in a way that we could actually see them in a way how we would see visual light, and if they wouldn't change life drastically in how it could be able to cure on Earth, what would that change? I think already yesterday I started to talk a little bit about that I'm not really that knowledgeable about how the specific physics would work and how X-rays and gamma rays actually pass through things and how deep and how we would be able to see them. I just have a very bare common knowledge of visiting doctors, seeing X-rays, just what I've seen in basically common media. Not much more knowledge about it. It doesn't matter for a speculation. I just want to think a little bit about it and just have a little bit fun with how would it change us, how would it change our perception, how would it change potentially our culture, and learning a little bit from that about, well, how is our current visual sense affecting us. So if we could see X-rays, we heavily focused this visual talk more so on the animal sphere, X-ray and gamma rays. How would that affect just normal life on Earth? We talked a lot about infrared. I don't see a lot of use for infrared for animals and predators and prey, because there's a lot of defense against it. I think on X-rays there would be a lot less ways to defend against it, because it would just be a lot more difficult to actually do so. And I just think with X-rays and with gamma rays, being able to see them, what would that mean? That means you could see through certain objects a lot more as we currently can with just visible light. That potentially could mean you could see through some areas of dirt. So you potentially could look for animals while they're hiding in holes that potentially could not be hiding spots, and just see their skeletons and stuff like that. Down there that would be a lot more denser than probably just some earth holes. So that would be an advantage that such a sense would give animals in normal life. It would also give, of course, advantage to the prey that they could just see predators. Like you could with just visual sense have a lot more of a see-through down to very dense elements, so more much down to, I don't know, rocks and bones. I don't know how good X-ray or gamma rays are in passing through wood, like how certain wood or at which thickness wood would absorb it, or if it's not. I honestly don't know, so that would have to be speculation in if trees could be better hiding places or not. But I don't think that would change a lot from being able to see that in the animal sphere, to be honest. Because our hunters are already really good at hunting. We have a lot of prey that is really good at hiding. I don't think there are a lot of big changes, big drifts that would change life on Earth that's drastically just from this visual side. For humans and how we would perceive things, it would change a lot. Like being able or having a way to see, for more things to be transparent, even down to our bodies. Imagine we could see through the bodies of other people. I don't know if there would be a way to have eyes that sense X-rays and gamma rays, and how it would be able to like adjust that on a spot, and what that would actually do for the sensing capabilities. I also don't know how that would be to have not just X-ray and like gamma ray sensors or like eyes for that with our normal vision, like how the perception, like how would one change between that? Like would that be a constant sensation? Like would you like constantly see all of these elements? Because I think, I mean, if it just widens the visual light, how we just see things would be very different. Because with visual light, it would bounce off the surface, but with X-ray and with gamma ray, you could see through things. So, and potentially through certain layers. So you would get some information from inside of things and some information from outside of things, which we currently don't really do. Here we have that with transparent object, but a lot of things for us humans are actually not transparent. But with our additional sense of X-ray and even up to gamma rays, things would become more transparent, but also we would have from difference, again, from our normal sense, we would have more surface information from X-ray, and from gamma ray sensors, we would have more like information from the insides of objects. So like just thinking about how would we perceive things differently. It's very difficult because I don't really know actually how we would process that. Would we like switch that? Would we have like X-ray and gamma ray potentially just actively and not just all the time? Or would it be a calibration where we look only at a certain range of light and we blend everything else out? That also would heavily depend on how the eyes would actually work. Or we just have all information and we just focus on certain spots how we want to see it. So we just have a way bigger of a visual range, and we just have a focus point kind of, and then we move the focus point around, and like how we see things in like sharp when we specifically look at it, because we don't see everything in our visual sphere sharp. We only see like a very small point actually sharp and in color. I would assume it would be very same with an addition of X-ray and gamma ray in sense that it would depend on what we would focus on. But even then, yeah, like if we just think further than that, how would that change how we think about the world? First, a lot more things would be transparent. We wouldn't even have as much of a distinguish between opaque and transparent objects. How they are like very sharp in what is transparent and what is opaque. I think our understanding of that would be a lot more fluid. And with that, of course, as with all expansion of senses, we would have a lot earlier on a lot more knowledge about the world. And in that, I think also a lot more curiosity in looking into things and seeing, well, how is it made from inside. So I, for example, would assume we had quite a lot of time where we were very hesitant and like even disincentivizing people of trying to look into borders, like opening them up and learning about how they look from the insides. At least we had periods where that was very much disencouraged, with like the church who was very much against it. I think it would be a lot more difficult to have such periods for humanity if you would be actually able to see inside borders like that. How would like our medical just part of humanity develop different if we could just see through the bodies of other people? How would we protect from that? Would we like try to protect from being seen through? Would being able to see through and into the bodies of other be a cultural thing that we would just expect? Like, would it be very rude and like very like a big warning signal and just very, very disencouraging if someone hides and tries to shield that from someone. So in that sense, is looking into something, and that kind also is transparency, like not just on like an object being and maybe in like our bodies, but just like as a very philosophy through our culture. Would that just be a lot more important? If we just would see the world as more transparent, would it be a philosophy that would come into just way bigger aspects of life? Would it just be very important or more important for us to be transparent, not just in seeing into things, into objects, into bodies, into our bodies, but also with how we're doing things? Would transparency in that also be a lot more value, because that's just how we perceive the world, being transparent, and it should be transparent, and hiding that might be like artificial, might be like again rude on a social aspect. I'm not sure. That could be one side. Of course, the other side could be that because you see that deep, you would want to try to hide that a lot, and you could have the very different direction of there's a lot of culture around protecting ourselves from being hidden, and like secrecy, and that could be stronger. I would assume the chance for that is a little bit lower, because it would just a little bit more unnatural for us to develop in that way. At least that's what I think, but I'm also not really sure. I mean, all of this is just speculation. I think it would go more so in a transparent direction. So I think transparency beyond just how we perceive things would play a bigger role in our lives, and just in our culture, and just in our base philosophy of what humans want and what they seek. Of course, we go a little bit then more into the cultural direction, which I always liked to do in these talks in last days. So how would that change like art? Because we could see into things, we could see into like the potentially the thickness and like the transparency of things, and you would play with them. So we wouldn't just like paint things on the surface, how we're doing right now when we're trying to make something just a little bit more pleasant. We decorate stuff, we make it just visually nice looking. But if we could look in some way through things, that would also be part of that. So we would design objects with having different kind of looks with their internal structure. We would be thinking, and we would be working a lot more with internal structures. I don't know why I have still notification sounds on when I'm on Do Not Disturb, and the app's off. Weird, but alright. I just quit. Where was I? Where was I? Notifications. That's not where I was. That was interrupting me. Now I lost completely my track. I was talking about, yes, kind of the inside texture. If we could see through things from a cultural and from not just a visual artistic point, we'd care a lot more about the internal structure of things, and we would in some aspects try to like beautify them, as we're doing with all things, where we care about how it looks and about the aesthetic of things. We wouldn't just care about the aesthetics of the surfaces, but also of the inside of things. So we would potentially at some points where it doesn't matter, care about the like kind of texture and the composition of things inside and how that looks for us. That was my timing. Clock is over. So I probably should end this talk right here. I think that's a good point to end the video. So I hope you have a good day.